And welcome inside the Pitt Studios here at the Peterson Event Center, a busy Peterson Event Center with the WPIAL championships going on above us. And it's funny, I was thinking it's our last show, and I was thinking back to the first show. It snowed. I thought, oh, there's no way it's going to happen. And then this morning, there was snow this morning. So there's something about the mojo of the show and snow that just –
Yeah, but at least the sun came out a little bit later, and we got a great day with some sun. So that was good.
I want to ask you a couple things about Tuesday. Mm-hmm. When you're facing Duke and they're hitting shots like that, like how difficult of a challenge when you give that roster and then they're making shots like that?
Well, I think when they're making shots like that, I'm not sure anyone will beat them. They're incredibly talented. They seem like, in watching them all year and especially in preparation for this game, it seems like it's a group that's all about each other. I was really taken aback by their size. It's one thing to see them on TV, but this is my first time seeing a lot of these guys, like seeing Paolo in person. You know, seeing AJ Griffin, the transformation. I've seen AJ. I've actually known him for a really long time. I'm good friends with his father. But just to see how he looks now, to see Trevor Kills now, he's a guy that we recruited, but to see his body now, and just to see how big they are and you know, their length that they have at every position. And then when you have such a unique talent like Paolo, a guy that's a legitimate 6'10", 250-plus pounds, that can handle like he can. He's second on the team in assists. And when he's shooting the ball, coming into the game, he was shooting 29% from three. But when he's making shots like he's making, they're very difficult to beat because they have guys that can break you down and, you know, beat you off the bounce. They have great spacing, which has kind of been a staple of Duke's program since Coach K has been there. And the thing that he does, and, you know, I know this because when I played there it was this way, and certainly the 7 years that I worked there, he doesn't overcomplicate the offense. He would always say, I don't want to teach a particular offense. I want to teach you how to play offense. And what he does is that he gives those guys freedom, and he just puts them in positions where their individual talent can take over. And in the last two games, our game and against Syracuse, I think they made a total of 26 threes. They made 15 against Syracuse, and they made 11 against us. And when they're shooting like that, they're going to be very difficult to beat.
So, Jeff, how does that work? I mean, obviously there's some structure there, but is it something that once you see that the guys are meshing together, then you can allow more and more freedom?
You know, it's probably more structure now than it was when I played. When I played, we basically strictly ran motion offense. We had a few kind of actions that we can get into that would get us into motion, but it was basically that. I think over the years, and probably since he started with USA Basketball, there have been more sets. There have been more kind of plays to get into actions that lead to motion, but more, you know, things like that. You saw him with a ball screen, with the 5-4 ball screen. That's something that's different. But when you have a guy like Paolo, you can be creative and do some different things. They'll post different guys. They'll post their guards because of the size of Kills and Griffin and more. They can take some chances defensively because they can switch some things. But they also have a dynamic rim protector in Mark Williams back there. And so it just kind of evolves. You know, everything there is all dependent on talent. You know, the 7 years that I was there, we kind of made adjustments based on the team that we had. You know, in 2015, when we won the national championship, we had the most dominant player in college basketball in Jahlil Okafor. So a lot of stuff went through him. But the beauty of that team is seeing how everybody got better. And really, I thought the last month and a half of the season, I thought our best player was Justice Winslow. And he had made the jump as a freshman and got to that point. And we made some adjustments with what we did to kind of showcase him and to showcase, you know, how much better he had gotten. And it was, you know, when we had Jason, it's been a lot of talent there. And when you have Jason Tatum, you do different things. You had Marvin Bagley and Wendell Carter. The strength was inside then. So it's all based on the talent that they have and putting those guys in positions to showcase that.
ACC tournament not in Greensboro this year, and at this time next week we'll be knee-deep in that ACC tournament. Let's talk a little bit about that as we continue. It's the Jeff Capel Show on the Pitt Panthers Radio Network. Currently, the Panthers tied with Boston College and Louisville with 6 wins in the ACC. Clemson has 7. They hold the tiebreaker. Could move up to the 11th seed, but you're playing the first day. How do you get yourself or get your team in the right mindset next week for what to expect in the ACC tournament?
Well, it's March. It's another season. Everyone goes to 0-0. It's excitement. You're playing in Brooklyn, and just the history of the ACC tournament. So once we get past Saturday, we'll figure out. I think we should know Saturday night who we're playing, and then our guys will be juiced. We'll be excited to play. The last time we were in New York City playing, it was a very exciting game, a great time up there. We played incredibly tough, and we were able to gut out a victory. And so hopefully we can have some of that mojo again.
Is it overblown playing day after day? I mean, I know guys grow up playing in AAU tournaments where they're playing maybe 3-4 times a day, maybe 7 times a weekend.
Yeah, but it's tough.
And I know the
just
level's
because
different.
the level's different, and then it's the end. It's the end of the season, and so by this time everyone's kind of worn down mentally and physically. Everyone's banged up. Something's hurting. You try to be cognizant in practice, and you can't have too long of practices right now. Try to get in and get your work in, get out, get guys some extra work that need it. But usually guys, the adrenaline of the tournament, the excitement, and the opportunity, normally there's always some sort of Cinderella. I think I told the story last week of my senior year in college. We were the 1 seed. We won the regular season. And back then there was a play-in game. NC State I can't remember who they beat, but they beat someone in the play-in game to get to us, as the number 1 seed, and they beat us, and they went on and got all the way to the championship, and so that's the excitement of it, and we are really looking forward to it.
You told us a couple of weeks ago the story about the PA blaring the ACC tournament when you were in school from Greensboro.
Yeah.
How odd is it to have the ACC tournament in anywhere but and to be in Brooklyn?
It's. I think the first year was in Brooklyn was 2017, the 2016-17 season, and I was at Duke, and I thought, especially as a guy that grew up in North Carolina and grew up in the heart of the ACC, man, that's probably going to be really weird for it to be in New York. I know they had. And one year I was at Duke, it was in D.C. I think they'd had it before I was there. I know when I was growing up, sometimes it was in Atlanta. They had it one year in Florida. I thought it was really good in Brooklyn. Now, we won it. We won the ACC tournament, so that may have been the reason why. But I thought it was really good. I understand it. I totally understand it from a fan perspective. There's way more to do in Brooklyn and in New York City than it is to do in Greensboro. But from a historical standpoint, it's always really cool to have it in Greensboro just because of the history of the tournament. But it'll be great. It'll be great because, there'll be excitement. There'll be really good basketball, and it's an opportunity for someone to etch their name in the history.
There are some teams that are going to be doing it right here in the WPIAL tournament that's happening here at the Peterson Event Center. I want to ask you about your memories of playing high school games and the importance for you guys of having the WPIAL championships here as we continue. It's the Jeff Capel Show on the Pitt Panthers Radio Network. Going on here at the Peterson Event Center, along with the Jeff Capel Show, are the WPIAL championships, maybe a little bit more on the line than our show.
Yeah.
You had told us, I think it was first show of the year, about playing against Jerry Stackhouse.
Yeah.
In the postseason. What do you remember? Take us back. What do you remember about your first playoff game in high school?
Well, I was in 10th grade, like I mentioned, in Fayetteville, where I grew up. At that time, you didn't start high school to 10th grade. So 7th, 8th, and 9th was junior high. You started high school in 10th grade. And so in 10th grade, I remember the playoffs started. We were at home. We were a high seed, and we won the first game. And then we got beat at home in the second game to a school from Jacksonville, North Carolina. And they were good. They were big. They were athletic. And they got us. They clipped us. And I just remember just my first one, just the intensity of it. Our conference was really good. The competition, where I'm from was really, really good at that time. They had some outstanding players, and we had a good team. We had 2 seniors and me. We referred to ourselves as Lethal Weapon 3, kind of the take on Georgia Tech with Kenny Anderson, Dennis Scott, and Brian Oliver. We were pretty
have
cocky.
Shirts?
We had shirts.
Did you really?
We actually had shirts. Yeah, it was. I cringe at it now, but we did that, and but I remember it just being a different type of intensity.
What's the vibe like? What was the vibe like in high school when it came playoff time?
Well, it was exciting. Where I'm from, I don't know. You're old enough. I've asked my guys this. Like, you're old enough. Like, you probably have seen or at least heard of the Andy Griffith Show.
Yeah.
Okay, where my high school was a small town called Hope Mills. It was exactly like Mayberry.
Are you
Like,
serious?
that's what it was. That's what it was like. And so when we played, the athletic teams at my school were all really good. During my 3 years of high school, we won a state championship in basketball, football, baseball, softball, and wrestling, and golf. Like, we were our teams were really good. And so, especially men's basketball and football, when we played, the whole town shut down. Like, if you wanted to rob somebody,
like
that was the person. Yeah, it was
where
like
the
that.
Bus, everybody follows
Yes.
the bus.
Yes, and so when you got to the playoffs, because you could get home court, it could be like that. But like, even if we played on the road, like, everyone knew Southview was bringing a lot of people. That was the name of my high school, so it was super intense. There was a tradition. All of us, by the time I got there, and really, especially my last 2 years, my high school coach was one of the most accomplished coaches as far as winning in the state. He had never won a state championship. And so that was a huge deal for us, and especially for me, to be able to do that with, for him. I was very, very close with my high school coach. It's funny, after the game the other day, I was asked by the media, and I guess Coach K mentioned that you can't coach now like the way you used to. And just some of the things the coaches said and did and things like that. And I was thinking, I started to say this up there, probably wouldn't have been fitting, but my 10th grade year, we were playing at home. We were winning by a lot. It was the end of the game. My coach said something to me on the court, and I talked back to him. Now, my coach, it was this white guy from the Bronx. Like, he had been
in Andy Griffith, North
yes,
Carolina.
Yes, he was like my cousin Vinny, like there. I never knew the story, but years ago, he had been run out of New York. Like, he couldn't go back. And so he ended up down there. I've known this man my whole life. My mom worked there when I was born. She taught at Southview. He was still the coach. And but anyway, I talked back to him. And so we're walking off the court after the game, and as we're walking, the training room is right here. And I get there, I'm like laughing, and as I get there, he reaches out and he grabs me, and he throws me on the table, and he slams the door. And he says to me, "If you ever do that again, I'll kill you." And I believed him. I believed him. And it's funny because that night, I think about this all the time, that night I felt so bad. I wrote him a letter. And I apologized, for what I did. I'll never do it again, how much he means to me. I want to be really good, blah, 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 and all kind of stuff like that. And we had an unbelievable relationship. Years after I graduated college, I was coaching. I think I was at VCU. Coach Miller passed away. That was his name. I spoke at his funeral, and after the funeral, his daughter gave me the letter. He
Really?
kept the letter that long and had it, and she talked about how much it meant to him, how much I meant to him. And so I still have the letter.
Wow.
And so that's, for me, the relationship with the player and coach is really, really important. And we were able to get him that state championship my senior year.
When we come back, the NFL Combine's going on now. I want to ask you, some of the stories you hear about the NBA Combine as we continue. It's the Jeff Capel Show on the Pitt Panthers Radio Network. Welcome back to the Jeff Capel Show here at the Peterson Events Center. It is NFL Combine time, which means poor Kenny Pickett has had to measure his hands 100. People forget he won 11
Crazy.
games,
Yeah,
Johnny
yeah.
Unitas Award, all that stuff. It's
Broke
hey, man, what's that?
Yeah. Broke Marino's records.
Right, right. He owns every record, it seems, at the University of Pittsburgh, which is a pretty good football school. Now, at some point here in the future, a couple months away, will be the NBA Combine. Is it crazy like that? Are they taking those type of measurements? Do you hear stories about that from guys?
They do. They take all type of measurements. They want to know everything about medical history. They in the NBA, they hire private investigators and detectives to like follow, especially like guys they deem as high draft picks, to follow them around in college. They're calling.
They hire private investigators to follow guys around in college?
Yeah, just to know like what they're doing, to know what they're, and it's interesting because, you get a lot of calls. I mean, I still get a lot of calls from NBA people like about, if we have a guy that they think, like, so with Justin, there were a lot of calls, but they'll call because I know a lot of them, and I've been in these positions with USA Basketball and things like that, so I've seen a lot of talent. I'll still get calls now about guys that we played against, guys in the ACC. What do you think, and things like that. The thing I've always done is that I've always been honest, and I tell every player that I coach I'm not gonna lie because I don't want to hurt the next guy. But they want to know. They want to know, family. They want to know girlfriend. They want to know all these different types of things. And then when you get there and you're in front of them, for the interviews, when a guy goes to work out, there'll be a workout, and then normally they'll bring them in, and there'll be the front office people, sometimes the coaches, a lot of people in there, and they're asking all kind of crazy questions and, things like that, trying to see. The thing that's happened now, probably over the past 6 to 8 years, is that they really, like, they have people that comb through their social media. And so stuff that maybe they posted when they were 13, 14 years old. Like, I've had people, like NBA people, tell me, like, tell your guys, not to retweet all this stuff. You know what I mean? Like, just things like that. Like, they're looking at everything. When they're going to invest in you, they want to know as much information about what they're investing in.
What do you tell your guys?
I tell our guys not to look at it. I tell them not to pay attention. But it's impossible for most of them to do. Like, they're addicted to it. Because I tell them, like, it's not the truth. Like, it's just some person's opinion. Just like if they say you're great, that may not be the truth. Like, you may be really good this game, but you have to move on. Like, don't value the opinion of someone that's not in it every day, someone that doesn't see the behind the scenes. It's one of the reasons for me, once we start the season, like once we get ready to play games, I delete all of my stuff. I don't want to see it. I don't read local stuff. I've never listened to talk radio. I get off Twitter. Like, I don't, and one of the things that's amazing is that when you get off social media, I have no idea what's going on. I have no idea really what's going on in the world, especially in the world of basketball. Like, my staff will tell me, this kid committed here, or I was watching a kid yesterday, and I said to the guy sitting beside me, like, hey, like, who's recruiting him? Like, who's offered? He's like, Coach, he committed to a school, like a couple of weeks ago. I had no idea, just because I'm not on social media, so I'm not aware of what's going on. But that's what I try to do, and I try to tell our guys that, but it's very difficult.
Oh, man, there are times that is a tempting way to go, But I do recommend, talk radio at some point. A major gift to the basketball program from a Panthers great. I want to discuss that and what his legacy is here at Pitt. It's a Jeff Capel Show on the Pitt Panthers Radio Network. Still the best. Bill Hillgrove here on the Pitt Panthers Radio Network, 2:30, which is an odd start time. We'll discuss the Notre Dame game coming up. But one of the Panthers greats, a major gift of $5 million for the basketball program. And now the lobby, which is right on the other side of this door, is now the Thomas E. Richards lobby here at the Peterson Event Center. You had a relationship with him.
Sure did.
What was that relationship like, and what does it mean to you guys for him to do this?
Well, it was it was it was a very special relationship. Obviously, his son Jason worked in the program before I got here, and then he worked our first 3 years we were together, and so that's how I got to know Mr. Richards. And he was always incredibly supportive of me, of us, our program. He loves the program, but I was just incredibly grateful of the wisdom and the kind words and the support that he gave me during some, trying times when you're trying to build something. And, he was a great man, family man, obviously was very proud of his university. He served on the board, was the chair of it, and just had unbelievable love and passion for Pitt men's basketball and the university itself. And, it was when Jason, I got the text from Jason early one morning when I woke up, about what had happened, and with his father passing. My heart broke for that family. I got to spend some time with them before the reception on Tuesday. I got to see Mrs. Richards, got to see their daughter, and obviously Jason. And unfortunately, I know what they're going through, and we talked about that. But just really grateful. And again, that gift shows the passion that he has for Pitt men's basketball.
We were talking about high school games, and I'm looking down at this because I want to make sure I get it right.
Yeah.
He had 63
Yes.
points. Matt Pliska doing the research. 63 points in his final game and averaged 32 a game.
I talked
his
to him
senior
about
year.
that because I heard that. I saw that somewhere in something that I read, and I remember asking him about it, and I think that was with no three.
Yes, it
I think
was.
that
It
was with
pre-
no three-point line.
Pre-3.
And that's one of the things that he talked about. Like, if it was a three-point line, Coach, that would have been a lot more because I could shoot it.
He earned the Blue Gold Award. He's part of the Varsity Walk. He got a master's from MIT, owned several businesses, ran several businesses. He funded a scholarship. He started an organization in the South Hills for young people to learn basketball. Member of the Board of Trustees, as you mentioned. And now he's paying it forward.
Yep.
Like, we talk about, like, it's a wonderful life. Like, Tom Richards led a wonderful life.
A wonderful life, and his family will continue to be the legacy of that because it's an unbelievable family. I always admired the love that they had for each other, all of them, and the support that they all gave each other. They were always there for each other, and I got to see that intimately with Jason. And seeing them around and see how genuinely happy they were for each other and how they had each other's backs. And I know his family will continue to represent that. I know that will always be in their spirit, in their hearts. The lessons that they learned from Mr. Richards on just how to be an unbelievable human being. Forget the success and all those things. He was a great man. He was an unbelievable human being, and he cared about others. He was incredibly blessed, and he worked hard to develop those blessings. And then you talked about giving back, paying it forward. He always did that. That's something he instilled in his children, and I know they'll continue to do that.
And now you can see it every time you come here at the
Absolutely.
Thomas E. Richards lobby here at the Peterson Event Center. The only time I've ever heard a bad word about Mike Bray is about where he's coaching, not about the man himself. Let's discuss your former assistant coach,
Yep.
Mike Bray, as we continue. It's the Jeff Capel Show on the Pitt Panthers Radio Network. All right, Jeff, I want to get down to it. Are the stories true? Is Mike Bray really a good guy?
Great guy. Bray, that's what we called him when my first 2 years. He was an assistant in Duke my first 2 years there. And he was a guy that always kept it light. And I think that's one of the reasons why we all loved him. Playing at Duke can be really heavy. And especially back then, this was a young Coach K, so it was a lot. And he was a guy that was always cracking jokes in practice when, Coach was yelling and things like that under his breath. He'd look at you and make faces. He'd come up to you and crack a joke. He was really good.
He was the good cop.
He was really good at horse. He had all these trick shots that he used to do. Yeah, because he had all these trick shots that he would do. He called them the scissors, and he had names for all of them. And so he was a really good guy. Obviously, he left after our, that year that we were 13 and 18, did an unbelievable job at Delaware.
Well, he played for Morgan Wooten
Yes.
at DeMatha, who is a legend. If you haven't heard that name, it's a legendary high school coach. And then, of course, coached with Coach K. So, he's had some experience to draw on.
No question. And he's a really, really good coach, and he simplifies things for his team. They play with such freedom. They have so much confidence, especially offensively. And just, and you think about it. Like, I remember asking Coach K this. Like, he hired Coach Bray, and Bray was an assistant coach in high school and the JV coach. And he did this. Like, he didn't do it to get a player. They already had Danny Ferry. Danny Ferry was already at Duke before he did that. And I just asked him, like, if you look at his staff back then, he had been to a Final Four, so he had done that. But he hired Tommy Amaker, who had no coaching experience, who just played for him, and Mike Bray, who was an assistant high school coach. And I said, that would be killed right now, ridiculed right now. But he said when he would go up to recruit Danny, he just always was taking, like he was just stuck on Coach Bray. He thought he was really good, how he communicated, the energy that he had. And then Coach Wooten spoke glowingly of him, and that was like the gospel to Coach K.
And here's what you need to know about Mike Bray. Transferred to George Washington his senior year. He averaged 5 points and 5 assists. He was a team captain and the team MVP.
Yep, no question. Doesn't surprise me. I mean, he's a great dude. He's really, really he still is really, really funny. One of the great things is that he doesn't take himself too seriously. He's a basketball coach, and he's a guy's guy. He's a guy that you'd love to be around and hang out with and have a beer with.
And a guy you want to beat.
Guy we definitely want to beat, no question.
Let's talk about his team as we continue to Jeff Capel Show here on the Pitt Panthers Radio Network. And welcome back to the Peterson Event Center. I don't want to bring up bad memories, but that first matchup, it was right there, and then Notre Dame kind of caught fire at the end.
They did. I thought we controlled the game up until about the 7.5-minute mark. We were up 10 and really had – we were really playing an outstanding defensive game. And then we just had breakdowns, and they made us pay every time with 2s and 3s. And even with that, we had a couple of opportunities at the end where we didn't make some shots or execute well, but we still had a 1-point lead. And Hub hit an unbelievable shot at the buzzer. It was pretty good defense by us, but a really good player making a big-time shot.
Yeah, Prentice Hub, I mean, that's a guy that's stuck around.
Yep.
We were discussing, like, he's a guy who's not jealous of what Blake Wesley is, and Blake Wesley is a lot. Yeah,
I think, in my opinion, and I don't know their team certainly like that, but I think that's been one of the big keys of their team. Number one, they're old. Like, they've been together, so they've been through a lot of things together. They struggled last year, and I know listening to interviews to start, Coach Bray talked about how he really wanted this team to get back to the tournament. That's been their thing. And then I think the Hub piece, because he was an all-conference player last year, and as a senior, he really got off to a rocky start. Like, he did not play well and was not playing well. But in the midst of that, there never seemed to be any jealousy towards Wesley, their outstanding freshman. And in fact, it looked like even when he was struggling, he was encouraging the kid. Coach Bray took him out of the starting lineup, but he kept encouraging Wesley and the other guys and cheering and things like that. And it was really our game where he got going. It was in the second half. If you go back and watch that game, he struggled in the first half. But in the second half, we fouled him. We put him on the free throw line. We didn't defend the ball screen right. He saw it go in. We left him open. We didn't defend the ball screen right again, and he hit a 3. And then that kind of got him going. And really the last 7.5 minutes, he was a big catalyst in their comeback win against us.
Well, it's the last show of the year. Best of luck to you in the game.
Thank you.
I want to thank you and, more importantly, your family for allowing you to be here for an hour. You don't get a lot of time around them. So
I appreciate that. It's been my pleasure, and thankful for you and everyone else here that's made this show this year great.
Yeah, we thank all of the guests that have been on this year. Thanks to Matt Plizga, who does a great job of setting up this show every week. Amanda King, she lugs this equipment everywhere.
She's the MVP.
She is. and I tell you, and it's flawless every week.
Yep,
Cale Berger, speaking of MVP, like, he's the most underappreciated person of every Pitt broadcast.
Yep.
Like, he does everything back at the studio. Thanks to everyone who listened. The Panthers are at Notre Dame. Again, it's a 2:30 start, so Panthers pregame at 2 o'clock with Bill Hillgrove, Curtis Aiken, and the aforementioned Mr. Berger. So thanks to everybody for listening. This is the Jeff Capel Show on the Pitt Panthers Radio Network.